Natasha Denona launched a new palette. You guys know me, I love her palettes. I like to collect them, and so of course I'm gonna do a video with a new Bloom palette. My plan today is to do some quick swatches just to kind of get an idea of the shades that I'm working with, and then I'll do a close-up, in-depth eyeshadow tutorial and kind of give you my first impressions of this palette. I did want to mention too that normally I do get Natasha Denona palettes in PR, but for some reason I did not get this in PR. I did buy it myself at Sephora, which is why I'm a little late on posting this video. So I did buy this palette with my own money, and as always I give you guys my honest thoughts and opinions. But if you decide you want to check out this palette by the end of this video, I do have a code on her website. It's just ANGELABRIGHT that can save you some money. So let's dive in. First of all, when I saw this color story online, I know that this color story is not really meant for me. I've been saying for a couple years now that I'm really not into super warm eyeshadows, and this is a warm palette. So these type of shades aren't really my cup of tea, but it really is a beautiful looking color story. It screams spring to me, especially as we're getting into the warmer months. In this palette, we kind of have some peachy, some coral, some burgundy. We also have like some rosy mauve shades in here. So I want to start by just quickly swatching out this palette so I can kind of get an idea of what I'm working with, especially the shimmer shades. I love to swatch those out and kind of pick which ones that I want to use for my look today. Starting with Fluorescence, Bark, and Keen. Kind of just rub over those a little bit, kind of smooth it out. This first shimmer right here is kind of like your typical shimmer formula. It's really nothing like super special or sparkly, but this is a nice little trio of shadows right here. This is Wren. Ooh, kind of like a salmony pink shade. Fleur. Oh, this kind of reminds me of a shade from, I think it's the Retro palette. I want to say it's like Psychedelic or something. And then Crisp. So this is kind of like a white shimmery base, but I'm seeing a little bit of a duochrome reflect in there, something kind of peachy in there. Nothing really blowing me away so far though. This is Lush, like a pretty gold shimmer. Brick. Ooh, that is an intense warm red shade. And then this is Rue. Kind of like a deeper pink shimmer. This is Flows. Ooh, I do like this kind of mauve-y rosy matte shade. That'll be really nice in the crease. That didn't swatch out too great though. Whoops. And this is Petal. This will be a really good just like blending shade for me. And then we have Ember. Kind of like a bronzy red shade. Last three shades, this is Robin. Another good kind of peach shade. That kind of reminds me of Peachy from my palette. This is Clover. Oh, I like that a lot. I like these two mauve shades right here. I might do something like that today. And then the last shade that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about is Equinox. That's a pretty shimmer. Yeah, that shade has a really pretty reflect, lots of sparkles to that. I will probably use that shade today. Honestly, first impression after swatching all of these shades, I'm not really blown away by it. Like there's times when I'm swatching a new Natasha Denona palette and I'm just like, oh my gosh, look at these shades. Like these are so beautiful. And like we've seen a lot of these shades before, especially, you know, back in 2016. But I do really love Natasha Denona's formula. I think that's a huge selling point for her palette. All right, but let's do a look. I think I'm gonna do something kind of mauve-y today with this Equinox shade, and we'll see what else. All right, we are up close and personal, so you can see exactly what I'm doing for my eyeshadow. I already primed my eyes, and for that I just used the Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer, and I set that with the translucent powder. For my brushes today, I'm gonna use my Sigma Favorites brush set that has 5 of my go-to eyeshadow brushes in it. I'm gonna start with the Sigma E28 for my brush set in the shade Wren, and I want to start by packing this shade on my entire eyelid. So I'm going to keep my brush pretty low on my lid at first to get all of that shadow off of it, and then once there's less product on my brush, I can start bringing it upwards and kind of wiggling it back and forth in this crease area. I will say though that if you have blue eyes, this color story is kind of meant for you. It's really going to make blue eyes pop and stand out because the tones are just so warm. So I'm kind of just using this shade as a base for the look. I'm definitely going to layer more shadows on top of this. So I've kind of worked this shadow up into my crease, and I'm still bringing my brush even higher up just to kind of soften out these edges, and I'm kind of just doing like a pressing and patting motion with this brush. Now I picked up a little bit more of that shadow, and I'm just going to kind of re-intensify that on my eyelid, because for this shadow I want it to be most pigmented on my eyelid and then kind of fade up as it goes towards my brow. Now I'm going to take the Sigma E33 brush in the shade Petal. So I kind of have that on the side of my brush like that, and I'm just going to use that to soften around the edges of Wren. This is going to be a really nice blending shade because it's kind of like a vanilla shadow, but it just has a touch of of peachiness in it, so it's gonna do a good job at blending out pretty much any shade in this palette. I'm gonna switch back to that first brush in the shade Flows. So I kind of have that more on the tip of this brush, and I'm gonna start by building up this shade on the outer part of my eye. So again, I'm keeping the shade nice and low on my lid at first when I have the most amount of product on my brush. And then I'll slowly start to bring it upwards towards my crease, and I'm still just doing patting motions. I'm gonna take whatever is left over on my brush in this inner part of my lid. I don't want it to be too pigmented, that's why I'm just taking whatever is still on the brush. Then I'm going back to that small fluffy brush with no additional product on it, but I'm just kind of softening out the edges of Flows. I honestly kind of thought I was gonna hate these shadows on myself, but it's also just like a beautiful day outside today, which is really just helping my mood, and it makes me want to wear like fun, pretty eyeshadow, so I'm actually really liking this so far. So at this point, I'm kind of leaving the center of my eyelid blank for now because I just added that Flow shade on the outer and inner corner. And then while I'm here, I'm taking more Flows on the tip of this brush, and I'm gonna run that across my entire lower lash line. And then just taking a little bit more petal on that small fluffy brush and just kind of softening around the edges. I'm also going to pick up a little bit of Keen on this brush, and I'm blending this shade right on top of my lower lash line just to add some of this peachiness into the shadow. I like that the shade is a little bit deeper than Petal and just a touch more peachy. So I'm going to bring it up here too, but I think it'll just kind of help to really pull all of these matte shades together. Okay, I'm really liking this matte base that I have going on for this eye look. Now I know I want to pop a shimmer on the center of my lid. I'm going to use Equinox today just because I think this is the most fun shimmer from the palette, but I also think Crisp or Lush would look really good with this too. Even this Fleur shade, even though this is kind of more of like a basic shimmer. I'm going to apply a little bit of my NYX glitter primer on the very center of my eyelid, and this is really going to give that shimmer shadow something to stick to, so it's really going to pop. Here is what Equinox looks like on my finger. Oh my gosh, it looks beautiful. And here we go, right on top of the glitter primer. Really like this shade though. Okay, it is building up really nicely though. I do think that is gorgeous. Now I'm gonna go back to that small fluffy brush and just kind of soften around the edges of the shimmer just to make sure there's no harsh lines around it. Just a really quick blend here, nothing too crazy. Okay, you could totally stop here if you want something a little bit softer, but I like my looks to be a little bit more intense, so I am gonna deepen it up. I'm gonna switch to the E27 in my brush set in the shade Clover. So I just picked up a little bit of that on the tip of this brush, and I'm gonna run that across my entire lower lash line. And then I picked up a tiny bit more of this shadow, and I'm just gonna stamp that kind of on my outer lash line area almost. I just wanna add a touch more depth out here on the lid. And then again, whatever's left over on the brush in the inner corner. So there's not really a good highlighter shade in this palette for me, but that's totally fine because my favorite one is gonna be in my palette with Sigma, and that is the shade Bright. So I'm gonna take that on the E42 from my brush set, popping that right in the inner corner. And a little bit under my brow. I'm popping a little bit of a shimmery nude eyeliner in my waterline. This is new from Urban Decay. The shade is called Faux Dough. This is my first time trying this, but I kind of like the little bit of shimmer in the waterline. Okay, I'm kind of feeling no false lashes today. I did get a lash lift a few weeks ago, so my natural lashes just look pretty good on their own, but for my mascara, I just used the Tower 28 one in the brown shade Drift. And here's a final close-up of the eye look. All right, here's what the final makeup look looks like. Let me tell you what else is on my face. I've been keeping my lips super simple recently. I've just been doing a lip liner in some kind of like lip gloss oil. So I used a little bit of this Jones Road lip liner in the shade Nudist. And then I just put on the Too Faced Kissing Jelly Gloss and Sour Watermelon on top. I tried really hard to keep my blush and bronzer pretty soft today because I wanted the eyes to really be the focus of the look. And I feel like I achieved a pretty soft cheek today for the first time in a while. And I'm only wearing 2 blushes. I started with the Huda Beauty Liquid Blush Filter. It's one of the newer shades, Sunset Lychee. She just came out with 3 newer shades, and out of those 3, this one has definitely become my go-to. It's kind of like the perfect mixture of a pink and peach together, and it just pairs so beautifully with this really warm eye look. And then I added just a little bit of my Essence Baked Blush in Cool Coral on top. Again, I'm kind of keeping with this peachy coral theme today. But I gotta say, I actually love how my makeup turned out today, and I'm kind of shocked by that because going into filming with this palette today, you know, I already know I don't really like super warm shadows, so I was kind of expecting not to love my look, but I really like how I look today. I definitely kept it pretty soft today though. That kind of was my goal. I didn't really use, you know, any of these kind of like deeper, kind of more intense shades in the palette. But you guys know me, I will do at least 2 more eye looks with this palette, don't worry. So I'm excited to keep playing with this palette and really get my true thoughts on it, so I will keep you guys updated for sure. As always, all the products and brushes I used today will be linked down below, and don't forget, if you want to check out this palette, my code ANGELABRIGHT can save you some money on Natasha Denona's website. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.